Run, Jen. Run! Run! Come on, Julie, relay, Julie, where you going, Julie?
If you go to your grave without having contributed something back to your community, I think you've missed the greatest part of what you could become. I bumped into it by almost accident, where I started to decide to put together kind of a ball opportunity for kids in the community. And what really started to pique my interest was watching these kids develop. Look at you guys, we're 7 runs down, okay? So we've got to go get 10 this inning, all right? Let's be tough on it, don't help it, come on, we can do it. Let's get 10 and go. And I marveled at that ability. And I guess I've seen that throughout my entire career, whether it's working with offenders, whether it's working with students at Mount Royal University. The human development is so fascinating and never ending. I suppose that's part of the passion. My parents were farmers north of Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. They were small, mixed farming with cattle and some grain farming. You know, my parents were involved in the community. Whatever community events were going on, whether it was at the church or the school, both my parents were there. They were pretty good role models for me. You know, they always taught me to work hard, be honest, and help your neighbor.
Well, he's part of a dying breed. You know, I suspect that was the way he was raised, and that's why he really truly epitomizes Calgary, that he really truly epitomizes this community.
He came from a really stable home as well. His parents were very ethical, and his whole belief system, I think, came from there.
I was a disaster in high school. I don't have a grade 12 today. I failed my grade 11. I tell my students that. I say, look, if Roland can do it, anybody can. You know, because I was playing ball back in those days, and at one point I was playing with 3 ball teams at the same time. And my pop wasn't happy with me at times, because I had to milk the cows, and they weren't all getting milked properly at times.
He's not a life support system for an ego. He will make it about other people. He listens to what you have to say. He cares about people, and he's modest and unassuming. And that's what just makes him such a likable guy.
I was in the Mount Royal Criminal Justice Program and being taught by Rollie from 2003 until 2007. Do you want me to push my policeman nephew? Sure. The most unique thing about Rollie was his inspirational attitude. The way that, although it was a student-teacher relationship, that you felt as though you could confide in him as a friend immediately upon meeting him. He's so approachable, he's so passionate about what he does, that's really what drew me into his style of teaching.
He was just the most dynamic professor. I never missed his classes, because his classes were just, he had everybody going right from the very minute you stepped in there.
At the end of each academic year, come around March, April, he puts out a call to students and says, who needs a summer job, right? And he gets that list, and then he matches that list up with employers in the field. He acts as a mediary with them. And so he starts their network, he starts their career, he starts their confidence in work. And that's, you know, that network is across Canada.
At one point he had said to me, how come you didn't go to college? How come you didn't? And I said, well, I can't afford to go. So he invited me to come and partake for all his classes for the year. And so I would go in and I would sit there and do his class, but, you know, not, just not get credit for it.
Personally, I think the thing that I was so proud of was that conference that we ran, spanned 30 years, called the Realities of Life and Justice Conference. And the people we had here were unbelievable. Have you ever heard of Hurricane Carter? The show called Hurricane? We had the real hurricane here. We had John Walsh from America's Most Wanted here. And that conference ran from Monday to Friday in the Laycock Theatre. That place was packed.
Many instructors simply teach the curriculum. And if at the end of the term you've taught everything on this list, then you've fulfilled your mandate, and you certainly have. But Rollie's always gone beyond the curriculum. He teaches the curriculum, but he teaches much more than that. And it's those things that you remember, and it's those things that actually have the influence far more than what's on the paper.
I saw from the very beginning that regardless of what role you entered into society, you could use that role for the betterment of it. And joining into policing, it was an opportunity for me to see victimizations and see an issue, and because of the things that he inspired me to do, I was able to jump on board and take part in this walk.
There was a time here in Calgary where the services we were offering youth was not very good.
What we were doing is we were taking children right off the streets. They were runaways, and unbelievably, we were keeping them in hotel rooms.
Gail came to me and said, "Rollie, why don't you open a group home?" And I said, "Look, I don't know anything about running a group home. I've never run anything like that." And she kept after me, and I finally said, "Okay, Gail, I'll do it if you run it."
It was an idea that came out of the blue, and it just rolled from there. With, if you know Rollie, everything rolls from there. It's never just a conversation.
Rollie always talked about when he worked at the jail, and how can we stop that from, how can we help children so that they don't move into that kind of lifestyle as adults.
We know that there's a high correlation between criminal behavior, undesirable behavior, and crime. Getting involved in crime, getting involved in thefts in the community. A lot of these kids came from homes where those homes didn't have a lot of financial resources. And what I wanted to do was try to teach them that there are ways you can earn this on your own. So I went out along with the staff. We took the staff and said, "Okay, let's go set up this little laundry business." So 4 of the 6 kids in our group home had an opportunity to work with the Gem Express.
Kids loved him. Rollie would come here every morning at 8 o'clock. He would pick them up. They would go for a breakfast, and he had all these little tiny places that he knew of, and they would go for breakfast, and then he would drop them off at school. And that was the start to their day. So it was always this wonderful start to the day.
Kids from 30 years ago are still contacting him. You know, they want to talk to him. They still want to be part of that, with him.
Step. Oh! One more. Step.
Oh, nice.
Roll back, Mason.
He's always liked kids, and it's just something he enjoys doing, and when our girls were growing up, that was his thing, to help out with their teams, and so he just combined the two.
And I always wanted to use whatever I was doing as a full developmental tool for those girls or participants. And so we had a number of sponsors, and I made sure that what we did, we would show up at each one of these sponsors' place, and I would pick one of the girls and try to coach them in terms of how to thank that sponsor on behalf of the ball team. And so no matter where we went, from sponsor to sponsor to sponsor, I would ask for a volunteer for the next one. Sometimes I would say, try to pick someone who maybe was shy, or someone who was really uncomfortable doing that, and still do that at Mount Royal. I've had a history of bringing a lot of guest speakers to Mount Royal. I never thanked the guest speakers. I passed that opportunity on to my students.
He wanted to provide an experience for kids. And again, I know that in Rollie LaHaye coached teams, it was more than just learning the technical parts of the sport. It was about what sport also teaches the individual.
Rollie is a big believer that people are entitled to second chances no matter what they've done, and that there is still room for people in the community despite their background. And it's a very gracious view of society, because that isn't necessarily a view that everyone would share.
He's learned in life that other people can give much more to you than you feel you ever give to them, and you can learn much more from others.
Even the most horrendous people we could think of as offenders in Canada, there are aspects of them that are good. And I know that's disturbing to a lot of people, but I really don't care. And that's part of what I've learned. So all of those people out there, and I've said this before, and I mean this on the bottom of my heart, I really would have to thank all those people for allowing me to walk through their world. Because had it not been for them, I wouldn't be who I am today, good or bad.